Welcome to Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. Today I speak with Sam Vanallemeersch, illustrator and cartoonist. Hope you enjoy.
Hi. Do you hear me?
Yes, what's up?
Yeah, you hear me?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. Hi.
How are you?
Fine. I asked to do it a bit earlier because I spent all week last week painting windows, and I've been extremely tired from doing so. Doing some renovations, so it had to be a bit earlier because I have to get a good night's sleep, I think, tonight. So
you own your house?
Yeah. I own my house.
That's cool.
Yeah, we never planned on buying one, but we had a small apartment, I think 12 years ago, and we wanted a bigger apartment because we both work from home. I don't know if you know, if my girlfriend, she also draws and she makes clothing and things like that. So we both had to have a studio space. So we looked for a bigger apartment, but we couldn't find one. And suddenly we found this really cheap big house, which we didn't expect. So we got ourselves a house. What?
Where is that located?
In Antwerp.
Antwerp.
Yeah, in Belgium.
Is that where you're from? Belgium?
Yeah. And where I'm from is about 50 kilometers from here. So I don't know what's that in miles. In miles, about 30 miles or something is my hometown.
What does it mean to be Belgian?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think it probably means the entire world doesn't know you exist, or something like that.
Well, that could be good when you're in Europe. That's a good thing.
I don't know, Belgium. Yeah, Belgium is like the capital of Europe in a way. You know, Brussels is like a big thing in politics and economy and stuff like that. But for us, it's just I don't know. It's Belgium. You know what Belgium is? And there's a really great rock musician here in Belgium who makes really he goes from making really poppy tunes to experimental music and things like that. He said Belgium is a great place because it's small, but you have like the best record stores in the world.
Interesting.
Nowadays you don't have record stores anymore because everything is online, but the time he said it, which is about 20 years ago when they still existed, it was entirely true. I mean, you could find the most bizarre stuff at stores, also comic book stores. It was like imports from everywhere, and that's always been a great thing. But
what confuses me is what's the relationship to France? Because sometimes there's cartoonists who I think are French, but they're Belgian. And are those cultures closely linked? Or am I just...
probably closer than people would like to realize, because in Belgium you have three languages. You know, you have a Dutch speaking part, you have a French speaking part, and you even have a very tiny German speaking part. So the French speaking part automatically relates itself a lot to France. But the people in France think the French people from Belgium are a bit like they're like peasants to them, and so there's always been the European comics in the beginning. Let's say the beginning phase. But when I mean the beginning phase, not like Little Nemo in Slumberland, because that was like the real beginning. But like when it really took off. here the typical European comic, it was a really French Belgian thing. It was they call it the Franco-Belgian comic scene. So a lot of you had like the Hergé who made Tintin.
Mm-hmm.
He's Belgian, but he also was a really big success in France. You had Spirou, which is also a series which was as big in France as it was in Belgium. So it kind of got mixed up. But it's still a big. Nowadays, the comic scene in France is like it's and I remember 15 years ago going to a comic shop in Paris. You thought it was exploding, but it's still exploding and it's becoming larger and larger. It's like this, yeah. So the comic scene in Belgium has become a lot smaller than it was in the past.
Are you a part of a scene?
No, I don't think so.
How old are you?
I'm 44 now. And
is this where you thought you would be at 44?
Well, I'm always complaining, but that's Belgians always laugh about that. That's the most typical Belgian thing. We complain about everything.
So it's like
all
French.
The time.
It's very French. It's like high quality of life, but always complaining.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So if I don't know if I'm where I wanted to be, but I remember when I was making drawings when I was still in school, and I thought, yeah, like this is the level I'm going to end up in. I'm never going to get any better, which could come off as arrogant, but also like pretty insecure, and was more like, yeah, like this is never going to amount to anything. So when I see things I did over 20 years ago, and I take a look at them now, I'm quite baffled at how I evolved. So I don't think I don't think my work is that great. I'm really, really terribly insecure.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 90% of the time, I think that, when I look at other people's materials, it's I just wanna curl up in my basement and don't come out.
Yeah, no. I mean, your work is pretty great, and I'm very critical of people. So like of people's work, I think it's objectively good. What's interesting to me is I remember you used to have two, if I remember correctly, almost two different styles, like illustration.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I still do that.
You do?
And yeah, it was even when I did my when you go to art school in your final year, you have to do like a big project on your own.
Yeah.
So I graduated with two projects even back then. So I had two completely different projects next to each other because I just didn't want to choose.
Right.
I didn't want to choose, and like now the choice has become not like there's I've come to a point that I'm going to choose because I don't like computer work anymore. I haven't liked it for a long time, but now it's like when I have to do commissions, I even don't want to do commission work anymore. I really want to. I'll probably still have to do it a bit to gain an income, but I'm just gotten fed up with it totally. And with the computer work as well, it just doesn't excite me in any way anymore. The only thing which excites me is just purely is drawing with a pen or painting or real materials and thinking about stuff I want to think about, not what somebody else wants me to think about, because that's what ultimately what the gist is of commissioned work. And
you had, would you say that second style that was more clean was very digital? Was that like illustrator?
Yeah. That's pure religion. Yeah, even today I was working on something, but that's just, yeah, you have to, I have a daughter and I have a wife and I have a house and I have to pay stuff. And if it were up to me, I wouldn't do it. But, you have to make money somehow. And people say to me, yeah, even my girlfriends all the time say, yeah, but you have to get a gallery, get a gallery and do a show and things like that. But I'm always postponing that stuff because I'm so afraid I'm going to be rejected, and I won't get, and people won't like it, and things. So I just end up making more and more drawings, and they end up in a drawer, and I throw them on my website. But that's about as far as it goes. But I realize now that yeah, I'm going to be like, I never thought I would say this, but I'm going to be like, I think I'm going to end up like as an autonomous artist, like as an artist. I never considered myself as an artist. But that's just evolved that way naturally somehow. So,
What do you mean, an artist as opposed to?
Yeah, I noticed in like in the US, people call a lot of things are called art. When you call something in Europe, when you call something art, it's more defined. It's more like when you call something art, it's most of the time you guys would call it fine art, and we just call that art. And when you make comics, you're a comic book artist. When you're an illustrator, you're an illustrator. But people don't refer to themselves that easily to themselves as an artist. So I've always found it like having a sort of it had some kind of a taste of arrogance calling myself an artist.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but like when you're an illustrator, you're calling yourself. It's more like you refer to yourself as kind of a draftsman or like somebody who's really good and it's something technical. But when you call yourself an artist, like for me, an artist is so someone like I don't know, like David Lynch or any person who wins a Turner Prize or has his work at the Met or the Tate Modern. Those are artists, and I'd call someone like Hergé, who made Tintin, an artist, but he never referred to him as in that way. That's I think that's a real big difference between the European way of seeing things and the more the American version.
My fiance is French, and she says this a lot, that a lot of people in America will call themselves artists or things art that European would never categorize that way, like you're saying. I think it's almost a marketing ploy from the American side, where there's this idea that if anything is done at a high level, it now becomes art, as opposed to just respecting each category, as its own field that can reach the highest highs. Because I don't like referring to cartoonists as artists because they're very good. They're just very good cartoonists. And there's obviously very bad art. And there's something nauseating. I almost see it the other way. There's something nauseating now about saying you're an artist, not because of the prestige, but because of how watered down and art schooly it is. Maybe because I'm just getting older, but I'm like in awe of people who have some practicality about them or lack of awareness. I don't think there's a lot of artists that I don't even think they knew they were making art. They just had to do something. They were doing something. They had kids. They had a wife. They went to war. They had diseases. And in between, they happened to make paintings. So they weren't like, I just don't think it was as central an identity. And I do think that's a problem with modern artists, where they're careerists in that sense,
Yeah, it's the same like with it's a thing we really which is really laughable like in Belgium you can get grants from the state really easily to write a book, to write a comic, to make your art. You can get grants like for big amounts of money. You just have to make big folders and files and things like that. Drop them at some council, and they will take a look at it, and you get your money, and you can make your stuff. But when you look at writers in the past, like a good example is like Franz Kafka. He was, I don't know, he wasn't a teacher, but he worked for the state. You know, he was just employed, and he wrote in his free time. And I'm not saying like that it's always great that the best art will be made by people who have to do it out of kind of like almost an existential
Right.
motive. But I don't like the other way around either, you know, where you just can go to some place, you get your money, and you can go make your art. And so I think it's like, what are you about then? I mean, you're not in it's like you said, you're not like a person who has lived some kind of life, you know, with kind of an experience or something. When you can just graduate as an artist, get some grants from the state, and go make your art.
Yeah.
Something about it, I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way. Though I myself also had a grant a couple of years ago. I just went and asked for it, and I got it, which was nice.
What did you do with it?
Yeah, I was working on a book. I'm still working on it. It's still not finished. So the grant really helped me to work on it for 2 months. But I got it in 2019, and we're 2023. It's still not finished. So I'm not gonna ask for money every year. So I asked it once, and I felt a bit disgusting afterwards. It was nice to get free money, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I remember seeing an interview with John Cleese like years and years and years ago, and it was the guy who made Faulty Towers.
Yeah.
And he made it entirely by doing commercials for 10 years. So nobody wanted to make this series about a ridiculous hotel owner.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I'm just gonna make it myself. And he did all these stupid commercials for everything possible, and then he paid for it entirely for himself. And I'm not saying like that's the way to go, because I don't know, maybe in these days it's a bit different. I don't know. But somehow I like this very do-it-yourself way of thinking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's like no, at least in my perspective, like in America, you don't get grants for making comic books. Like this is just not, but there's work, you know, like there's plenty of work to find. I think what's appealing is like the mystery and oblique nature of a person who is more than one thing, more than an artist. Like, again, like, because there's something really boring about a life uninterrupted in some ways, a career uninterrupted. And I mean, it's pretty rare that anyone has that life. I think modernity might be able to provide that, but I think like there's so many disruptions to a normal life that you can't help but become interesting over time. But when you're just going through school and institutions and you don't have an autonomous identity, I think what you become is an extension of whatever's providing that grant or that safety net. So I've always been interested by the European grant system, and if that produces better work or more work, or if it produces laziness, or
I think it really depends. It really depends on who gets it.
Yeah,
it's really that. There are just people who don't do anything with it, but they quit with this stuff anyway. They go teach or something. I don't know. And it's not like you can permanently live of these grants, unless you're very, very, you have to kind of be business savvy in that regard as well. So if you're really busy with it all the time in how to get it, yeah, you'll have your grant income, which it sort of amounts to, but I think it really depends on a person.
Sure.
I mean, there are people who make very, very interesting commercial art. There are people who make very interesting, completely unexplainable avant-garde art. It all depends on who does it and what their basic intention was anyway. And I think this basic intention most people have, it already starts when they're children, when they're like 15 years old. And maybe stuff can come in between disease or anything, or war or anything else. But I think that the basis is already there.
What is your basic intention?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I always wanted to just do what I wanted. Do what I want. Yeah, just simple.
But you have a child. You said you have a child, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that run contrary to that idea in some sense? Like,
no, because one other thing which, and it's like I'm kind of very strict for myself. I have very strict rules to my life. And I don't know, I think it was some French writer, probably from the existentialist period or something. It was a quote I read somewhere, and I thought, man, this really applies to me. And he said, like, if you want to write really great books or make really great art, you have to live in a very, you know what petit bourgeois means? It's like a very small-minded bourgeois mentality. You have to live like that. If you live like that, everything else in your art will be very violent and extreme because you have to kind of use like an outlet. So you have to live in this house or apartment. You have to go to bed at that time of day. You don't do drugs. You don't do too much alcohol. You just keep a very strict life.
Yeah, that's a Flaubert quote.
Yeah, and I really like that one. I don't know if Flaubert lived by those rules, but
it's this, right? Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work.
Yeah. But
that stuck out to me when I was younger too. I don't give a fuck about his writing, but
I think I never read it.
Yeah, I don't. But I think it's true. Like, I'm from the suburbs, so it's just like, and I don't do drugs.
No, but I don't mind people who do. I mean, there are great artists who do these kind of things, and that's fine by me. But for me, it was just a personally, I was very attracted to this way of living. This so I can just focus on what's on the paper, and everything else is just like a really regular everyday thing. Like, get up in the morning, bring your daughter to school, come back, pick up a piece of paper, start working. 3 o'clock, you get her back from school. You drink a cup of coffee. You make dinner. I drink one tiny glass of wine every evening with a cigarette. And I mean, like, very because when I was in my 20s, I absolutely didn't live like that. I mean, it was a total chaos, it was, but then I met my girlfriend and suddenly it just stopped, and I was like, oh, this is good. This is just good. This is perfect. And when my daughter was born, I think I started drawing even more and more and more before that. So that the tempo, my tempo got quicker, and I don't know.
No, I hear that a lot from people. It runs contrary to what others think will happen when you have kids. But typically, people believing if you have kids, it'll ruin your art career are getting wasted half the time anyway. So I don't think it's true. like I love rational thought, I love logic, etc. But we've overdeveloped this kind of way of thinking about life where we plan every single
Oh no.
thing, and we say, oh, if we have kids, then this will ruin this thing, or it's too much thinking, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's oh, what was a quote from making plan? You just can't plan. You just can't plan it. I mean, it's the same. It's the same with making drawings, and that's what I meant with like keeping my life as regular as possible. It keeps my what I can do on paper really fresh in the sense that I hardly plan anything I'm going to make. So it kind of like do this. I try to everything is rational. Everything the boring reality is as rational as possible and as simple as possible, and everything else what I do to make art, whatever I can call it. It's like I can throw this anything goes mentality into it and just don't give a fuck. And
yeah, you see that in the work that it's discovered, not like planned. That's what makes it good.
And it's very and it's very much based on a lot of my work is really quite literally based on my dream life. I don't really talk about it that much because I think that's some kind of when you start talking about a lot of my drawings are based on dreams. It gets this kind of new age type of connotation or like a psychological connotation, which I don't want to make. But it's a lot of it's notes and dreams and things like that, and having ideas for very planned out things, which I start to make, and in the middle of making them, I'm like, no, we're going to go another direction, and we're going to go, and then things evolve, and so yeah.
Does that make it hard for you to finish a comic? This kind of
of course, because the book I'm working on is part comic and part drawings. So it's what I always loved when I was younger was these comic books by artists which contain like some illustrations, some drawings, and then a couple of short comics, and like the mixture of things. I love that kind of stuff. So I started making when I got that grant. It was meant for me to work on a storyboard for 2 months, on a script and a storyboard. But I was doing it and I was bored out of my mind because I hate storyboards. I hate planning things. I hate structure. It's so difficult for me to keep it to keep interested in things like that. I just want to draw. So I started drawing, and from making the drawings. The ultimate plan for what it was going to become, it crystallized inside of it. So I know people who can like pick up a piece of paper and start drawing with a pencil and very directly communicate the idea they want to communicate. But for me, it has to be like a pile of material I made first, maybe even throw it away in a garbage bin. But I have to have this kind of mess of material which is already there, and then I can dive into what I already did and kind of find the stories and the symbols and the things I want to tell. But these things you want to tell, you don't realize them beforehand. And I know people who realize these things beforehand, but I can't. For me, it really has to just come out of it, like the sword of Excalibur coming out of the lake, thing like that. So there's going to be a comic book in it, but it's going to be a lot of it is going to be based on the drawings I'm making, the series of drawings I'm making. It's going to be kind of interwoven because like I said, I have done it. I have written a script in pencil, which I also really hate to do, drawing in pencil, but I was always bored with the results. It was so unnatural and so bland. And so now I can kind of, like now it's going to be like controlled improvisation, like, yeah, I can't really explain it any better than
No, no,
what I'm
I
saying now.
completely understand it. I think it's a lot of alternative comic artists have that issue. I think the moment they try to put a mechanical process in place, it loses all of its interest, steam, etc. And I agree that that's the solution. You just make a huge dump and then you have to edit it out, and then maybe you can fill in the gaps. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the best scenario I've found. Like, kind of have units of drawings and then try to make something with it.
Mm.
But
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's also more connected to, I think, like world kind of like poetic world building or something. And
sure.
not that I'm that much into poetry anyway, but it's kind of related. It's and I and I really, I mean I'm a really big fan of like very well structured manga and French comic books, which have like very good structured stories. I mean, I'm in awe of artists who can draw and write that well and really make this type of engaging material. I'm not like the biggest collector of alternative comics,
Right.
really not. But I know, I know, I'll end up doing them, and I'm ending up doing them, and it's, but when I read a comic book, like I'm just looking at my, so like when I read something like by Close or like even like the whole Akira series, when you read that stuff, it's like I'm so amazed at how they're so perfect at drawing dialogue and action scenes and dynamics and paneling and things like on a really technical level. It's so extremely well made, but
It's very mature, very disciplined. I don't know if
yeah,
those people look at your work and say, "Damn, I wish I was all over the place," or not all over the place, but more diverse in my approach. I think it is true that people often don't really like their own work and wish they worked in different ways. Um,
yeah, but that's
that's
really
life.
typical thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I,
Like,
I I'll and I know some people who make art and then we talk about the artists they like, and I noticed the people whose art I most of the time whose art I really like is when they talk about their influences, their influences are completely different to themselves.
right.
Like people who make conceptual art but are like, I don't know, totally into techno music or something like that. Like things which are just diametrical or like completely different from themselves. Those are most of the time the artists I like the most. And artists who talk about their influences who are very much in their genre or their style or thing like. Most of the time, I don't like their art that much. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
no, yeah. I was thinking about this earlier today. I think honesty and an honest life is usually represented by being torn in two directions. Like you want to be this thing, but you
Yeah,
can't be. But dishonesty, people seem really one dimensional and consistent and pure, like they're lying to you. Like, oh, I'm just this. It's like a flat
yeah,
two dimensionality. But I think there has to be a level of dissatisfaction with the thing you're fascinated by. Like, I think you have to see comics and say, I actually don't like them that much. There's something wrong, and I want to change it or add something. Because if you were completely enamored with what you did or the field you were in, you would just, I don't know if you would make anything. Or you would just keep making a copy of someone you really liked, a redundancy.
yeah, maybe. I don't really think I have much to add. I
Well, who
don't.
are you? Speaking of influences, who would you cite as some influence?
Well, a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I guess the two names which always come back to haunt me
Hmm.
are Hergé and Moebius,
Yeah.
and especially Moebius. And in my work, I notice his influence, and I hate myself for it. Every time when I see like a snippet of his influence, I'm like, oh god damn it, you're copying
No, I mean,
it.
no.
And with Tintin, it's the same. Tintin is maybe different, but that's like the thing I really grew up with. It was like my mother told me when I was an infant, like 2 3 years old. She said she could find me sitting on a chair, uh, looking at one page in one of the Tintin books, and I could stare at it for about half an hour. And she said it was crazy. He was just sitting on a chair and he was just staring at the page. You wouldn't move. You were just looking at it like it was some kind of painting. So those are like the two names, but I'm I'm very big fan of like a lot of the comic book work and illustration work, like the French Belgian stuff from mid 70s to like the end 80s, things like that. Those have always, yeah. Yves Chaland, I don't know if you know him. That's like really ligne claire work. Like it's, but he died really young. I think he was dead at 29 or something.
What's his
Before he
name?
was 20. Yves Chaland. Do you have your camera on? I can show
Yeah,
you
I
a
do.
cover of. It's
Sure. No,
yeah.
I don't know his work.
He made fantastic comics and illustrations, but he died really young. But I don't know. He probably made more work than most people do in their entire career in 12 years or something.
Well, to be fair, I don't. You've digested those influences well. It's not very obvious that you are mainly influenced by Hergé and Moebius, and
Yeah,
they're basically perfect artists, I would say, in some sense. I think
yeah,
they're the pinnacle of many things. They're very different artists. I think Moebius
yeah.
is one of
Because
the, go ahead.
when I say Moebius and Tintin, it's the same with music. In a way that I've always been like completely a big fan of very minimal electronic music, but at the same time I'm a big fan of Frank Zappa. But I tried to be less of a fan the past couple of years, but still it was like one of the biggest influences in my life. So that's also like these two things. So it probably also relates to me doing two things, like digital work and work.
Yeah.
But now somehow you have to. But you want to say something about movies? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just his ability to obviously be very structured, disciplined, and prolific while making very weird work. Maybe because I'm not
And
sure.
he was very prolific, and he smoked weed all the time.
Really,
I
didn't
don't
know that.
understand how he was stoned all the time. I don't understand how he could do it, because he was a drawing machine. when I smoke too much weed, I just want to go to bed and sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, I often think it's funny. Like, would you want to be Moebius?
I don't know.
Because then you can't look at his work the way that someone who's not Moebius gets to look at it. Like, I love Miyazaki, but I wouldn't want to be Miyazaki.
No, of course. No, that's the paradox. It's the like a paradox of empathy or something. Like,
I think it's a paradox of envy in some sense. Like,
envy, yeah, of course.
because
Yeah.
I'll be sitting there too. Like, I don't think envy is really worthwhile ultimately, but I'll catch myself being like, oh, I wish I was that artist, or I wish I could do that. But I
Yeah,
mean,
but like making art is always, or being an artist or whatever you call it, is always like this permanent flux between being envious, thinking stuff is crap, thinking your stuff is crap. Like this circle, which is God, this snake who's biting his ass all the time.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I see it as a piston of like almost like pure high self-esteem narcissism, and then super low self-esteem
yeah,
like criticality, so that like you're not happy, that you won't stop. That I've kind of tried to rid myself of this, but when I do rid myself of it, I wonder if I lose some kind of energy, some dark energy, and make less or something. Like I think it's hard to be really at peace and make a
mm,
lot of work. It seems it. I want to believe in it, but at the same time, when I look at the best artists that I think, they seem like tormented by something beyond the pursuit of, just like being zenned out. It doesn't seem like what they're looking to do.
yeah. Because when you talk about someone like Moebius, I think he was very unhappy up until a certain point as well, because he made the way he made a living out of doing comics was drawing Western comic books under his own name, the Blueberry series.
Yeah.
And he did it really well. And I think he probably liked doing it but at the same time, I think he really wanted to escape this. And, and I, and his own work only took off basically around when he was 40 or maybe even later. Before that, it was all Western comics. So I don't know. Would I want to be him? I don't know. I don't think I'd like to draw Western comics all the time. So everybody has this little thing. I mean, if it's so, it's not. Yeah. Like Miyazaki always amazes me how negative he is.
Oh God, yeah.
I think it's really funny. I mean, it always gives it's always like these very funny short YouTube videos or like photos of him being sulky and starting to whine about stuff or like commenting on his son. His son can't. You can't be a good director and things like that. It's like, man, you're a bit of an asshole.
He's very well. He's running a team, so he has to be kind of an asshole, I think. The different.
Yeah, he's Japanese. That's also a thing.
It always shocked me that Moebius had 4 kids too. One of them being called Nausicaa. Because I don't know. When I was thinking about having kids, I was like trying to find evidence of great artists who did. Maybe out of fear that if I had one, it would all end. Which again, I think is bullshit. But
I don't know. Having a kid like the first year, it's not that great. You have people who love babies. We didn't really love babies, but we survived. And after that, it's kind of fun. I don't know.
How old is your kid?
She's 10.
10.
10, yeah. There's this idea nowadays, like kids have to have this perfect childhood.
No.
I don't think I had a perfect childhood. I had a nice childhood. I mean, most of the kids in my class, their parents were all divorced, or it was starting in those days, like divorces all over the place. My parents were happily married. They were a bit too Catholic for my taste, but that was about the only thing. It was okay, but nowadays, and we didn't go to the playground all the time. We didn't go on vacation all the time. But nowadays, when you have a kid, you have to go like You have to go camping every weekend. You have to do this. You have to do that, because otherwise, maybe she won't have like this perfect childhood.
Yeah, yeah. You know what it is? It's the neuroses of the parents hoping that their child won't go to a therapist in 20 years. The child is they're definitely going to a therapist no matter what. That's just modernity, you know? So I also think a good Catholic foundation is good for an artist. It's very complex, almost torturous upbringing, and it creates very potent imagery, I think. Because you're like you're thinking about hell, and like
that's true.
There's no protection from like pretty raw, brutal dynamics, deception. I don't know. It's very.
It also has this. It has a very big aesthetic quality to it as well. I mean, you can say a lot about Catholics, but they really knew how to get some artists to make great work and get all their churches and big palaces and their message across in nicely baroque paintings and sculptures. I mean, it's this entire world. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. The more I study it or come back to it, I'm just like. I see it in a really different way that as a kid, I didn't see it. I think when you're a kid, you just see its prohibitive nature, like whatever you're not allowed to do, you focus on. So, I can't do this. I can't do that. And then you start reading the stories later and you're like, this is bizarre. I don't even know. Like what confuses me is if someone sat down to make up this religion, this story, and they intentionally crafted it in a certain way, I don't think it would come out the way it did. It feels really weird so many times to me. It's very bizarre. There's people who live to like 300 in Genesis, just like, but it's written like it's historical. It's so weird.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been talked about. It's a cliche to talk about it, but even like, what is their symbol? The symbol is a guy on a cross, and like, and it's very interesting because I didn't notice. I don't know if it was a podcast or some article I read about it. It was like in those days when you died on a cross, it was like the most humiliating way to kill someone. You know, when you were hung on a cross, it was this was really done to. I mean, it wasn't like some elegant martyr style of dying. It was like dying on a cross that was really like for losers.
Yeah.
It became a symbol of like this great religion. It's a symbol of a guy hanging from a cross, and it hangs in all these living rooms all over the world. It hangs it's in my parents' living room next to the TV. It was in my room. It was in their bedroom. And it's just such a bizarre. I remember seeing it on my wall when I was about 10, and then I realized, like, okay, I don't believe in God. I think this is really silly. And then I hated it for years to have to go to church every week and we even went to a place like Lourdes in France, which is with my mother, because she believes in all that. I don't know if she still does, but back then she believed in all that stuff, but also because she was a bit sick all the time. But it's just it's just so, it's so bizarre. It's so incredibly bizarre. I mean, you just can't make it up.
I think that's what got me is like the atheist critique is really weak. It's very superficial. I think often, like, if you were to make it up, why would you make it up like that? It's not like it's not good marketing. It's not that appealing. They act like it's this really comforting rule set, you know, like, oh, of course people go to it. It makes them think they're going to go to heaven. But it's like, yeah, what about all the shit where you go to hell forever, or you're not allowed to do this, or there's like some gruesome elements that are not marketing. They're not effective marketing. No, I do think that's crazy. I think the funniest part to me is like, it's not funny, but it seems accurate to describe the universe, which is like, you can do everything right. You can treat
Yeah,
people, and then you will be crucified by by the government, by the other religious leaders. Your friends will betray you. You'll die. You'll just die. Like there's no reward per se for the.
but what I find it very interesting because that's like one of the big things wherein you talked about Belgium and France being maybe connected to each other or not. Like north from us are the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is a Protestant country. So my father always worked in the Netherlands, so I know a bit of the Protestant culture, a little bit, not a lot, but I know also because my father also talked about Protestant religion to me and things like that. He explained this to me, and that's the interesting part. And the Catholicism also allows a lot of how do I say this? Being a bit devious and not really, everything you do, you can sort of like pay someone and you're forgiven. You pay someone with enough prayers or with a little bit of money and you're forgiven. You can go to heaven again. But with Protestantism, you're born. A baby naturally is born with sin. This is a thing which does not exist in the Catholicism, which I find interesting. With Protestantism, a baby already has sins within him, which is kind of a crazy idea. I mean, what did this baby do but get born?
You mean like original sin?
Yeah, the original sin. Yeah. That's I don't. It might exist. It probably exists in Catholicism, but in Catholicism, it'd be like whatever. But in Protestantism, it's taken very seriously.
It does exist, but I think the whole point of different denominations is they emphasize completely different things. And I would agree that somehow with the Italian
it's less rigid,
It's like rascal Italian nature mixed with this religion. And somehow it ends up, super Baroque, super wealthy, super powerful, manipulative, contradictory. I actually like that. It's almost like rap music sometimes where it's like these dudes rapping about God and how they killed a guy or something. And like they're struggling with their humanity in an aesthetic way, I would say. Like they're not.
Yeah, it's always great to see like this gangster rap record and with all these tracks, like all about violence and sex and the back of the records. I was like, I want to thank you, Lord, thank God. Yeah. I love that.
But that's I don't know if that's what I have. My blood is Italian, and I just visited one of my relatives who's 92, and I see that rascal nature in him, like in a very interesting way, in a beautiful way, like a jester or something. Like it's hard to articulate, but they're certainly not Puritans about it.
No, it's kind of not literally, but it kind of embraces the paradox because it embraces the paradox in a way that it doesn't want it to be a paradox. They want everybody to be pure and good, but there's still this. There's this unconscious realization that it will never happen. So they kind of, like they will close and say like, okay, it's fine, but it's not fine at the same time.
It's like it's a dance.
Yeah, it's a dance. But for us, it's funny, maybe. But of course, when you live in a place like Africa or South America, where this is interpreted much more sternly and strict, it's not that funny. I mean, we can see it more from like an aesthetic, philosophical view. You know, see it like this idea. You know, objectify it. But for people who really, I don't know, believe in that stuff 100%. Yeah,
it's super complicated. I don't know how to talk about it from that perspective, because it's like art. There isn't this. It's not like a self-help book where it says. It's not so simple where it's like this is the thing you have to do 1-to-1. It's not necessarily like propaganda either, where it's like just do this. It says do shit, and then there's like other parts of the book that would say something almost opposite. So it's more like the internet to me. It's just like this collection of.
Yeah, it's completely different to something like, I don't know a lot about it, though I live in a neighborhood with a lot of people who are Islamic.
Yeah.
But Islamic has much more rules and almost like a political structure behind it, and the Quran, it has a very different vibe. I'm going to give the Quran a vibe.
Yeah, it's true. It's more like don't drink, like straight up, just don't fucking drink. Don't do. But I mean, yeah, I wish I knew more about Islam. I'm just interested in general in the Abrahamic religion. It's just so unavoidable in narrative making, image making in the West. I don't know how to avoid its influence.
You can't. It's just it's always there. It's the thing you said about atheism. It's I've always, there was a point when I was just a stupid guy, 18-year-old guy, and I was calling myself an atheist all the time. But I don't know. I think I don't really believe in God, but I also believe in God. I mean, I'm just like agnostic. I just don't really. I think if God exists, it's just like he doesn't really care. Just if it would be a person, he would just be like, yeah. You all have these rules and you just go along with the rules, but I don't think I wrote those rules.
Yeah, I believe in the supreme, basically surreal nature of reality. So I just think it's too weird. It's almost too weird to even understand the rules of it for me. Like when you step back from it, is it implausible that we were created by an entity? No, not at all. There's so much weird shit about reality that the atheist feels really dry to me, like they've got it figured out.
Yeah.
Oh, like there's no way. I mean, meanwhile, we have these weird hands and eyes and brains made of. I almost can't fathom how weird life is. Art helps me understand it partially because I'm trying to recreate aspects of it, but it's so.
Yeah, that's the thing I hear a lot, and I really never understand what people mean by trying to understand life through art, or making art, trying to understand life by making art. I never understood that. For me, art is just like, it's a thing. And I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I dig this. Or yeah, that's an interesting point of view, but I've never looked at it like, okay, this is telling me something about. I don't mean this like I think your point of view is stupid. I always hear this. I've heard this a couple of times. People saying, and I don't get that. And so you might, I don't know if you could explain it to me. I don't know.
I think, at least in a consumerist society, like you live on the surface of reality. You look at things for its utility. You don't typically consider how it's constructed in some sense or how it came about. But I mean, even the simple act of drawing a still life is a step in the direction of, like, how is this thing constructed, and the relationship between things. So drawing the structure of an eye even in a simple sense, like 3 lines, already puts me in the position of like understanding the surreal nature of the process. So in some ways it's confusing because I have like almost an absurdist religiosity where like I love the existentialists, mostly Camus, because Camus is still very moral and basically not that absurd, I guess. He's like some weird tension. But I believe in order as well, but I cannot escape the absurdity of existence unto itself. But by drawing, like I make pretty absurd work, but by drawing, I feel like I start to get some handle on the structure of the absurdity. It's not that I start to have a rational understanding of why things occur. Mm-hmm. It's just a step in the direction of entering into the magic that I think exists inherently in the world, that I just think modern society really is bad at doing, because it's usually entering it via hedonism, drugs, etc., or it's just not even trying. It's just lazy. It's complacent. And that's just why I think drawing is still important to me, but not even, like you said, I'm not really that interested in illustration too much. It's kind of a means to an end. I just love drawing. I don't even care about fine art. I don't care about being in a museum, or I didn't like running a gallery that much, frankly. I learned things about fine art that didn't make me more, it made me less interested. It made me realize I just love books and what they can do. So that's probably, again, why it's weird to me, like religious books, just books are weird. And I can't get over books in some sense.
that has to go on the back of your memoirs.
That's what I mean. It's like so weird, right? Like books are so weird.
Yeah.
Why do they matter so much? But I want to talk about that one thing. Like I find myself more and more, although digital stuff's unavoidable, like with the emergence of AI, I want to be able to prove to someone I made things in the future, like in the next 10 years. So more and more, I'm not drawing on the computer. Like I want to be able to be like, when someone's like, did you actually make that? I want to be like, yeah, here's the piece of paper.
For me, it's always been the work I made on a computer. I've always seen it as something unimportant and non-existent. And not that I think my work's important, but for myself, I've always seen it as something which is it has zero importance in my life. I just do it, and it's fun to do sometimes, and I work with clients and I talk with them and things like that, but it's just a job. But the digital, I've had discussions with people about like sketching on their iPad and sketching on their phone, or sketching whatever on their Cintiq or drawing. And I've even had really heated discussions about those things, but there's just something so basic about having a pencil or a pen and a piece of paper. It's just, I mean, don't even get me started on AI.
Yeah, no, we don't need to. We don't need to.
It makes me angrier every time when I think about it, about this big steel thing. But no, I don't know. Like when you were talking about understanding reality through art, and in a way, I sort of probably do it as well, because you made me think about, when you draw an eye really simple or something like, when you look at drawings by David Shrigley, for instance, do you know David Shrigley?
Yeah.
He makes he's very good at making you realize things, and it's so super simple, and it looks so easy and so stupid, and it's just some lines on a paper, but that's just the brilliance of it. And you can do it on a computer or you can do it on a paper, so it doesn't really matter that much. So it's a bit of a different thing, probably. I'm a bit getting out of tangent, um, but I think, I don't know, drawing is just there's such a weird mechanical thing to it, and I think a computer is already this extra filter which you just don't need. It's like,
Yeah, I think it's a demiurge in a sense. And it's like I don't even know if it's a filter or a block. And by that,
yeah, what I mean is
is
like
it?
you have something. It's like there's this. It's like when you go somewhere, you go to a bank and you have to talk to the people. Uh, you have to talk to someone at the bank, and there's this big piece of glass in front of it, and you can't really hear the person on the other side because there's this piece of glass in it. That's for me is like working with a computer. There's always like a piece of glass in between me and what I want to do, in between the
Yeah,
action and myself. And
I
when
think
you,
yeah. I think it's worshiping a different entity. Um, ultimately, I think
yeah,
there
yeah,
like it gives you certain when you worship at that altar, you get efficiency, you get the ability to edit things quicker, manipulate things quicker, so thus you get more clients, etc. But you lose things as well. Um,
there's there's no that's something I talk about often when with other people who make art or cartoons. The reason why I like drawing so much, and also why I dislike it a lot as well, when after you've worked with computers so much, is it has this sense of danger. You can fail. You can fail at any moment, and it's only in a thing as direct as drawing where this happens, because when you start to make oil paintings can be changed all the time. You have like this permanent. You can redirect it all the time, anywhere you want it, because the paint is always wet, and you can add a layer there and a layer there. But if you want to make a pure black and white drawing and trying to convey something, it's yeah, I don't know. It
yeah,
has this. It's very tough.
no, it is. I think it's almost macho. I hate that about painting.
Yeah,
I wanna have the conversation and then walk away. It's like I just want to like that's why I like black and white. It's kind of the most direct way out, and then it's over. And
yeah. And then when you start making black and white drawings on a Cintiq, yeah, every line you draw, you can go, you can delete them, delete it and start again, and delete it and start it again, and a lot of my drawings these days are also have pieces I cut out and recut, but that's not most of the time is because I want to change the narrative of the drawing a little bit. But if I would do it with a computer, I don't know what I think it would end up being terrible. I mean,
yeah, I think there's a funny environmental angle too, where it's like, sure, I get the whole we don't want to use paper, but I think life is more interesting with those sacrifices, with those pressures.
are there people who don't want to use paper due to ecological?
Yeah, I mean, like you could think even from a school perspective, like, oh, we're not going to read books, we're just going to have iPads, and then you guys are going to download textbooks. And then from an art perspective, I think you could push the same idea, right? Like oil paints, all this stuff. But for me, like there needs to be a sacrifice. There needs to be some kind of something lost in the process for it to really be meaningful.
Yeah, I think really. I mean, look at this whole digital thing. I mean, how long has it been around? It's been a. I think my parents, my father was born in 1939, so computers have been around. I mean, the actual computer has been around about like from the 40s when they wanted to defeat the Nazis, and then we had the evolution of computers from then on. So what is this? It's not even 100 years.
No.
And already already every kind of thing which existed before that is being thrown under the bus. People saying it's ancient and you have to adapt and it's this and that. But I'm like, when you look at history, I mean, this is just such a small blip, such a small period of time in which this digital empire has taken over everything. I don't know. Why would we have to go along with it in making art? I just don't see that. It just doesn't have any, I don't know. Maybe we're just both reactionary. I don't know.
Oh, I don't, I think I have no issue I think the way I view people is they all have slots, and they're conservative about something, they're liberal about something, they're reactionary about something, they're angry about everyone has it. There's no way around it. There's just kind of psychological patterns. If I'm going to be reactionary about something, I'm fine dying on the hill of I don't want to have my consciousness uploaded or something. This is completely fine by me. We'll see when I get there, but I think there's going to be something so. Imagine how funny how sexy it's going to be. You're 80. There's all these cyborg kids walking around, 20-year-olds. Nobody knows what a pencil is. Nobody uses a real pencil. You're still making actual work on paper. You're going to be very intriguing, very beautiful.
A friend of mine sent me this picture of a photograph of Jack Kirby's studio. Oh. And what you're talking about, how it reminds me of, this is this almost an ugly room with a big fireplace, an ugly fireplace, and this one small drawing table, like almost black of ink. It was like nothing. It was almost like some kind of room from a horror movie, like there's when a killer makes his plan. I mean, very. And it was so cool. I mean, this guy made up entire universes, probably chomping on a cigar, looking at that ugly fireplace, making up these entire universes in his head. And
I don't think it's pure nostalgia. I think there's an objective quality there that's going to be lost, and something else will be gained. Something good or bad, I have no idea, but. It's tricky because I don't like cluttery shit. I don't like having a bunch of shit either. But again, there's a sacrifice.
There's an obsession for control. Yeah, it's really an obsession for control. And I notice this every day in every way possible. And we do it ourselves. Everybody is a victim of it and a perpetrator of it. And we want to control it all. And these computers, they're just, they seem like the perfect device, but they can't make you not get cancer or things like that. They can't make you happy, but they give you this illusion of constant control, having your phone in your hands all the time, which controls your time and space everywhere. You can communicate everywhere all the time. You can control who you are communicating. You can make yourself be liked. It's kind of, when you really rationalize the whole thing, it's really creepy. I mean, it's really, really creepy.
Yeah, it's eerie. I've been talking to a priest lately, a guy in a town next to mine. And this idea, it's such a simple idea, but I'm still grappling with it. It's just the idea that as opposed to this life of control where you think everything through, you try to plan everything, try to be meticulous, like now you have to surrender to God and his will. And I really struggle with that. I struggle with what that even means,
Well, in a way, it's also like surrendering to life.
I think that's essentially it, right? Like, but it isn't like a complacency. That's like, I guess that's where it's confusing. I'm a pretty extreme person psychologically, I think. So like, I can be very either or binary, ironically. But I do think it is a certain like accepting of an openness to the poetry of life. Like you can make all these plans and you should in some sense, but it's not going to happen. And actually on my car, my friend wrote this shorthand for a biblical quote, which is man proposes, God disposes. And I always like this idea. Like you can have all these plans, but it doesn't matter. If it's not going to,
right now, my father, I've been noticing, and I really think it's we're in that stage. My grandmother had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing now my father is, over the past 2 years, it's beginning with him. He's beginning to become, he's having the first stages of the dementia. And I notice also he notices he's losing control. And it's very confrontational to see, because when you have a parent that suddenly dies, they're just gone. But now I'm seeing my father like slowly going away from reality, and probably after that going away from life, because Alzheimer never ends, ends like a fairy tale. Yeah. But it's the same thing, and I see him struggling with surrendering to it. He's become better at it, but he's still fighting against it or something. And I'm also, me and my brothers are also fighting against this idea, because we don't want to think of our dad like that. Was also we always like this fit guy who never was sick and things like that, and suddenly just can't even say where the train station is while it's about, I don't know, 500 meters from his house. So that's also like this. It's for me, this is very weird to suddenly see. And what you're talking about, this surrender, it's also this is also kind of a surrender to life, or to God, or whatever. It's my dad probably also had or has plans, but he sometimes talks about these plans, but won't happen. Which is, but
it's I don't pretend, I think it's easy to look at other people's lives and say, yeah, just surrender to that shit. But, when I'm in that position, or when I'm near death, I'm not sure I'm going to be like, just kumbaya. All right.
No, of course not.
I'm sure. Like, I think there's a great beauty to kind of a violent resistance, and there's something poetic there as well. But it's there, just like I always say, like people who have something to hold on to, negative or positive, tend to live longer, even if it's like spite. I've seen that. Like a neighbor who pisses them off can give someone like 10 extra years, I think. You know what I mean? Or some grudge that is so stupid. I don't know. I find that interesting. It's like something to do, something to live for.
Yeah, I don't know. In that regard, I'm really happy. I can do something which doesn't really depend on someone else. Because like what I said about my father, like he was very happy in his job. He was a physical therapist with sick kids at an open air school, with sort of a
that's cool
boarding school as well. And he was really happy doing it. He loved working with those kids, and suddenly, he had to retire. But I saw it, and that's a problem. After you retire, what do you do then? So I'm really happy I can draw. I'll never have to retire unless I get, I don't know, arthritis in my hands or something.
I still think there's a way to draw, no, drawing is a blessing. It's just clearly a blessing. I can't see it any other way at this point.
Yeah, probably. But you probably also have days you like me when you're kind of like, why do I do this? And I don't want to do this anymore. And it's always the same. It's always the same shit.
I don't have that anymore right now because I have so much other stuff I do. When I used to only draw, it's just a natural thing. You just do it. You kind of get burnt out. Now I want to draw because I don't have enough time to draw.
What's the other things that you do then, aside from this podcast? And you still do the books, the Soldato books? It's you, right?
I built it and designed it, but I don't work it.
Okay.
But it is part of like this compound that we like I do fabrication with my business partner. So that's like art fabrication and furniture building. Largely because I was like, oh, I'm so useless as a drawer. Like couldn't fix anything 3 years ago, couldn't build anything. So I was like, I need to learn. And just to feel connected outside of just a piece of paper or a computer. And then I also run this art center called the Williams Center in the same town. So it's all in the same place. And like in my 30s, I just realized I need to become a human. I need to try to be a human, deal with human things, social things that I avoided in my 20s just by drawing. And then if I find it distasteful in my 40s, I'll retreat into the luxury of drawing and art. But I felt like I had this energy of a young man. I owe the world some kind of exertion. And then again, if it fails, or if I learn the same lessons over and over again, which I feel like I am, then I'll just go back into more a hermit world,
Yeah.
Or like I'd like to have children. So there's just like a necessity. Children link you to your society here and now, like you suddenly have to start thinking about now, right now, or even the future. Like, what does it look like for a child in the future? Whereas when you're drawing and you can kind of get lost in your head, there's a beauty to that. And there's also a great danger because you become almost disembodied. And I think there's something evil about complete disembodiment.
Yeah. Yeah. It all comes back to the same things. I think we kind of, I'm not saying we're repeating ourselves, but it's always the same pattern of things which comes back. Is this contrast of two things. And it's not bad to have the contrast and to have the double things which are double, It's also really,
yeah.
Like when you're talking about kids, it's also really bizarre because suddenly all my work evolved in a direction I really liked, then disliked, then kind of went another way, liked again. But suddenly your kid is 10 years old and you're like, oh shit, it was like yesterday she was a baby. But then all these years have passed. And so you have these piles of work which you made in all that time and it flew by. I mean, if you really want to learn what like Einstein's theory of relativity is, you have to have a kid. It really it's like the perfect metaphor. It can really it's very bizarre.
Yeah, it's so strange how you meet like a 70-year-old and they say, like kind of like cherish it because it goes fast, and you just roll your eyes like, sure, everyone says this. Also, it's like, how do I cherish it exactly? I don't understand, because like time moves fast. I still think I'm whatever. I think the 90s was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So And I imagine with kids, like you focus on them, so your sense of, I guess,
Yeah, but it's also this repetition, because
sure,
like when you're in your teens and your 20s, you're still discovering a lot of things. It's like this thing when you're in your 40s or end of 40s, you everything becomes so repetitive. Also in people, because by then you probably met every type of person there is.
yeah, the
So
archetypes.
yeah, you've had them all, and it's like when you're in your 20s, you still go to bars a lot. You go out, you go to parties and things like that. But when I went to those things when I was in my 30s, even when I didn't have a kid yet, I remember sitting in a bar at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, wasn't this the same last night and last week? Didn't we have kind of like the same discussions? I was fed up with it. He just went home. And now I might go to a bar like once or twice a year, or maybe 3 times a year if I'm lucky. But
Yeah. I mean, life is pretty long.
yeah, you just change your objectives or something like that, and cherishing it. You know what cherishing is? Cherishing it is really easy if you don't have to do a shit job. Then you can cherish life all you want. But unfortunately, a lot of people have to do shit jobs. And I'm not gonna tell the supermarket cashier or somebody unloading my package from the postal services saying, "Yeah, you have to cherish life." I'm like, I'll just be friendly. I'll just be friendly because he has a shit job and he probably makes way less money than me and can't complain that much.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. If you can draw for money in any fashion, that's a crazy life. It's a crazy life. And you both draw, you and your wife.
Yeah. She I should send her a link to her site. She we even had an illustration rep agency for a while, a couple of years ago, but we stopped that because my wife hated doing it. It was too much administration, and but she did a lot of illustration work. But she went back to it because she studied fashion first, and she was younger, and she went back into that, and now she's kind of combining her love for illustration and like repeating patterns with making clothes. And,
I'm looking at her work. It's very nice.
And,
I mean, she has Helen Van Engelen.
Yeah, Ellen. Yeah.
It's a very elegant name. Ellen Van Engelen?
Yeah, that's Angels in Dutch. Ellen from the Angels.
Wow.
That's her name.
Wow. Do you think, have you ever dated someone who wasn't an artist?
Yeah. And I'm really happy I met her. Because I remember when I had my first date with her and we went out all night and we were quite drunk and I ended up in her apartment. And I remember entering her apartment and I knew she made drawings and I really loved her work. And I saw a bookshelf on the side and she had all the comics, like a wall full of comics. And there was like one shelf and it was all the Dragon Ball Z comics. But from 0 to 100, like stacked neatly.
Wow.
And I was like, finally, I'm dating like a hot nerd, like a hot geek. Finally, this I never could imagine this would happen. I think the first movie I saw with her was a Miyazaki movie, and then after the second movie we saw was Freaks, the 20s or 30s movie. And before that, I had other girlfriends. I had a short while was with a girl who was an actress, but we always fought. But it was interesting. We always had these long discussions about everything, and we never agreed. But yeah, I think I don't know if I could be able to live with somebody who doesn't do what I do, or something in that vein.
Right.
I have my studio. She has her studio below me. We both have our studios here in our house. Some days she works at a fashion label here in town. Some days she works at home, and it's just I don't know.
Does your child make art?
No, she's absolutely uninterested.
That's that's super funny to me.
Yeah, but I think it's because she sees me and Ellen struggling, and
like physically, she witnesses struggle, or you mean like
struggling with making our work?
Yeah,
struggling with, like, we talk about. I mean, oftentimes we discuss drawing and things like that at the dinner table, while our daughter watches us and looks at us like we're aliens. Sometimes she also joins the discussion, but we can really talk about it, like, technically, like, oh, and I don't know what I have to do with this, and I think, when I grew up, my parents and my brothers were all very much into music. They all played musical instruments, and I hated musical instruments, but I also had to go to music school. But drawing was like completely for me, because nobody in my family did it, aside from an uncle I had. The brother of my father was sort of an artist, but there was nobody else. So it was kind of like, this is me, and I can have fun with it. But my daughter, she also sees us doing it as work and as something which isn't always that easy. And so she's very much into sports and dancing and music.
That's cool.
I'm fine with that. I remember talking to an art teacher. I was in England a couple of years ago doing a lecture, and I remember this art teacher, and he was we went to dinner with him, and he was like, and it was like, it was really horrible because he really hoped his son would become an artist, because everybody in the family, apparently his son wanted to go study finance, and he was really, why does he do this? But he could also see, it was also a bit with irony, sort of humor in it as well. But I saw he was really struggling with this. And I'm like, I mean, you can't expect your kids to be the same as yourself. I mean, so I would find it fantastic if my kid would be in my studio drawing with me all the time. I know artists who have kids like that, but I don't know. As long as she's happy.
I think
just stupid shit.
It's an interesting point. If you have two parents making art, maybe it demystifies it as just like it's just a thing that you do for work,
Yeah, I think it's but it's the same with, you have these parents who really want their son or daughter to be, because they went into sports, but they couldn't make it, and then they want their kid to go into sports to make it, and then they go stand by the side of the field and shout at them like, I don't want to be that guy. I mean, sometimes I ask her, don't you want to go to the academy, go to like the drawing lessons on Wednesday afternoon? But
no.
Up until now, she does. But she does like to. She likes to create things with paper crafts and things like that. That's something she really likes to do. She makes things, but not like me and Ellen. We're like very obsessed by what we do.
Do you care about sports or no?
No.
It's interesting because
I can only do this in a hand gesture, but it's like, for me, sports is like this. It's zero. It has zero place in my existence.
I ask because the work is like frenetic and high paced and almost athletic. There feels like even the mark making is like I don't know. It's very physical, very violent in some ways.
Yeah, but that's probably more to do with my musical choice, and I have my love for like cinema and moving images was always, I always had this thing where I wanted to be able to draw something two-dimensional, without animation or without any camera, which has this moving quality to it. It's something it's not that I obsessed over it, but it's something which I noticed I didn't like. I never liked people who made really static drawings. So I kind of probably practiced on it in some way. But sports, I can sometimes appreciate the aesthetics of like the long jumping and skiing. I really love that stuff. But that's probably the only thing. Everything else in sports, you get this famous meme cartoon like an athlete being interviewed who is talking about like, we sports really good and next week we're gonna sports even better, and then he gets interviewed the next week and he says, yeah, we didn't sports this good this week, but next week we're gonna sports better, and then he goes in this loop. That for me is sport. I skateboarded when I was younger, but it's like, it's just an adolescent thing. But drawing, in drawing, I never saw it like, something connected to I don't know. I'm not even that obsessed by human anatomy or anything. It's just whatever works or something. I'm just interested in something dynamic. So dynamic, if something isn't right, it doesn't matter as long as it's dynamic. Something like that.
I think that's the thrust of the whole conversation. It's just like, for me, contrast that's what dynamic means. Just clashing things that don't really mean one thing. I'm not really interested in work that just means a thing. Very boring.
Yeah, because also this way of making. People say, people sometimes say this, like, I don't understand what your drawing is, but I like it, but I don't understand what it's about. Most of the time, I sort of do, and I sort of don't, but it's not, I don't do it on purpose. The thing is, I always start with an idea, and this idea is very simple, and I start making the work, and then suddenly I think of another idea. I think, like, Jesus Christ, this idea is too simple. I want to put that idea in there as well. And then I've got a story, and then I get another story, and I get another story, and at a certain point, I get like 5 stories going on in one drawing at the same time. And I don't do this like a shtick or something. It's just, I can't help it. I want to make simple drawings. I wish I was like the guy who drew Dick Tracy, simple drawings, but I can't. So I pile up these stories, and also a big facet of why my line work is the way it is because I'm very bad at drawing like for half an hour or an hour straight. And also why my drawings are kind of defragmented as well. It's just because I have a bit of a concentration issue. So all this stuff just amounts to a kind of a personal thing, which isn't like a very conscious personal thing. It just happens because of. So when you talk about athletics, it is very much because of a way of moving and a way of thinking that what I do is what it is,
What do you mean by an idea? What's an example of an idea that would make you want to draw?
Oh, it's very, those ideas are very stupid and very simple. I mean, like really, really simple. Like completely super stupid. I don't know, this. I'm working in that book, and I was working on a drawing, and for some reason I wanted to make, because I just had I just was thinking about it. You know that joke? It's probably kids nowadays don't do it anymore, but they probably did it in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe 80s. Like you get this wallet and you put a string on it.
Yeah.
And they go sit somewhere and they pull the string and the person goes behind the wallet. Something which happened to me actually when I was about 14, when kids pulled that trick on me and I was running after the wallet, so I certainly thought of this memory of the wallet thing. And then I don't know, in the supermarket, and I was thinking of the wallet thing. I'm going to do a drawing about that. And then I think of what I'm going to draw, and now it's evolving more in kind of a fantasy, Dürer-like thing in the woods, which also contains this idea, but like not as the main. Mostly the ideas are just the idea to get you going, or like. Looking at a photo. Sometimes I look in a book with photos, and suddenly there's like this great photograph of some top model or just a normal model, and I like the way her foot is twisted. Her toes are twisted in an interesting way.
The reason I ask is largely because I think young illustrators or artists think that ideas have to be these big.
No.
Big social messages but ideas are very stupid little things.
But that's just a problem. That's what I see all the time. It's this political illustration. It's this, okay, we're not gonna drop that word because it's dropped all the time. But this stuff about the woke thing, like we have to talk all the time about racial issues and gender issues, and I have to talk about the fact that I'm a female and look at my female empowerment, and then the man has to talk about this and the woman has to talk. And no, that's just, that's just it. If it is in there, if it's in your mind, somehow it will come out and be a part of it. And that's just the thing. Don't think about it too much. And the thing is, I have a good friend who's a really great writer, but he was saying, I don't understand how you never have any like writer's block, like I have. But that's just the thing. It's because he's always thinking about grandiose things, like it has to be grandiose. And for me, it's just one more piece of paper on the pile, and I want it to be a good piece of paper, but that's about it. And ideas, ideas are just, you can find ideas in anything, and you just don't have to. It's like searching for a girlfriend, get these people who are searching for the perfect relationship material all the time. It's just waiting for terrible things to happen or nothing to happen.
Yeah, it's like you're saying with like over thinking how to raise a child. In a sense, it's like, you have to start from the bottom up and let the process drive the more profound elements. So an idea can be, especially drawing-wise, drawing's a visual thing. So the idea, one, you don't even need ideas to sit down and draw, I don't think.
No.
But two, it really could be something really mundane, like you're saying, the placement of a foot. And you let that drive, that's the vehicle. Drawing is the vehicle. Where you end up is the idea, but you don't know where it's going, I don't think. But if you know where
and sometimes you know where it's going, and then suddenly your mind, your subconscious or whatever, suddenly says, nah, we're not going that way. Right. Suddenly it goes another way, and then you end up, and you always, because that's what you said with like that envy part with like those great artists. That's the thing I always think about when I read like a really great comic book or a really great book or look at a great painting or a movie, and I know it is a silly thought because it just is, it's completely stupid to fret about a thing like that. It's always thinking like, how come I can't come up with that idea? And it's really simple. Right. I'm not that person. but you try to deconstruct the ideas that person had to see where it came from. But even then, you can't really deconstruct it far enough to know where, if it's good, you can't deconstruct it far enough to know where it comes from. But that's always a thing I'm framing about. Like, like when you see a great comic book page, like, how was he thinking? Like, I'm going to draw this part first and then that. Why did he do that? And it was probably because he was just behind the table. It's like, oh, him or her behind the table was like, oh, this is interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do. Okay, it happens. Like what we do just happens. But I can get really obsessed about it, just thinking about, how was he? What was this? When was the decision made? When did he decide this? You just don't know.
And in that sense, it's fraudulent because, again, like life, existence doesn't feel that way, doesn't feel that figured out. It's not a logical narrative. It isn't clear why apple trees make apples the way they do, or they exist at all. It's like things are very weird. And if you want to be convincingly creative, I think you have to mimic the foundations of reality. And it's not like a put on. The other thing is a put on, I think. The other thing is a false identity. It's art schoolish, where it's like super rational, super thought out. It's kind of like, why am I spending time in this school? There's got to be a reason. So we should really think this thing through. Otherwise, why are we here? Especially if you pay for it, like in America. It's like, what is the value? Well, there has to be a system if there's going to be value, I think. And that system, ironically, crushes a lot of artists. I think in the process, art school can ruin people.
Yeah, sure. A lot of times. And there's also, yeah.
It's like when a woman may ask you, why do you love me? And I don't want to answer that. I don't want to understand the core complexities of that kind of of love. I think that's dangerous almost to start sifting around.
Yeah, because you might end up in a territory where you don't love her anymore, because you suddenly you start to question it all.
Well, yeah, it's demystified. It's the magic has been caught in a net. It's like it's just. But
it's still a bit different because, like I said, when I look at people who make things I really love, I love it when I try to demystify it, but I can't. And then you know it's really good. You know, you try to find out like why, and when you just can't find out why they did this or that, and just realize you will never know, then you realize like this is just. I mean, I even have it with art I don't even like. There's a lot of art I visually don't like, but you look at it and you see like, this is good. I don't know why it is, but it has merit. It's quality. It has something to say, and that's when you just can't.
I like that idea more than what I said. That it's so powerful that you try to demystify it, and you can't, and then that makes your love stronger. It's inexhaustibly mysterious, almost.
Yeah. My God, I really didn't expect this conversation to get so metaphysical all over the place.
Well,
no, but it's cool because we went from Catholicism to this.
I think in truth, like art isn't that interesting to talk about. So I don't do this podcast to talk about art. And what are you going to talk about? It's a visual medium. You know, it's like, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about pens and process and?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I get these emails. What kind of pen do you use?
That's the other thing. It's like, if I buy that pen, it contains his like power. It's like an RP. It's like a role playing game. I get the pen, and I can make his drawings.
Yeah, it has lots of XP.
Yeah. I feel bad for 20-year-old artists. It's a fun stage, but there's a lot of that going on. Just grappling with like trying to be something. It's very much a weird phase.
Yeah, it is. In my 20s, I was just a really commercial artist trying all kinds of stuff. So I didn't really and going to bars and drink too much.
That's
perhaps they should do that.
Well, I know you got to go to bed. It's late, no?
Yeah. I don't know. Oh,
you must be regular in your.
Yeah, I must be regular.
Otherwise, you won't be. You will not be violent tomorrow if you don't.
Well, tomorrow I can't be that violent. I have to finish a deadline, which annoys the hell out of me. But I'll be violent from Thursday on.
Yeah, there's no violence in commercial art. It's very much there's no room for violence.
No.
Well, good talking to you.
I tried it a couple of times, but
no.
I had clients who were very upset.
No, and the people don't pay for violence. They pay for compliance.
Yeah, but they should. I mean, if they can.
Yeah, mercenary. You want to be a mercenary.
No, I mean, people pay
Hessian.
Stedman. They pay Stedman. So you can't say Stedman. I mean, Stedman. But stop a bit with the drippings, but.
At what point does Stedman stop being violent, right? Because it's such predictable violence. I like Stedman. I used to love Stedman when I was like 15.
Yeah, I know.
But it's like, all right, you did acid once, now you got that style. All right, that's the violence.
Yeah, I saw a short video. This last thing I'm gonna talk about. I saw a video of him in the studio, and he was showing how he started a drawing. And he picked up this big brush and the thing, the drips he does, and now I'm gonna get some nice drippings going, and he steers and then he started, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that was like always also like demystification.
Oh yeah,
because I always thought these drips would just happen spontaneously when he was doing something, but it was just a stylistic thing. I'm going to throw the drips now. I'm going to do this now. It was like a Photoshop layer.
Right.
It was really depressing because I loved him before that, and then I saw this video. I was like, I don't know. We're done.
It's hard. It's hard to be a lifetime of art and be spontaneous, especially once you start getting paid. Yeah, it's real tough.
Of course.
But much respect to Ralph.
Yeah, of course. No. Because he made some pretty great stuff. Yeah. Okay. Good. This is the first time I ever did a podcast.
No, it doesn't get better than this, so don't do another one.
I'm just very scared. This is recorded and being kept for prosperity, which in internet time probably means 2 years until the server explodes.
It'll all be gone. Well, good talking to you.
Hopefully. All right. Okay.
If you ever find yourself in New Jersey, you're welcome. Although I don't imagine that happening.
Well, New Jersey isn't that far from New York, right?
I live like 20 minutes from Manhattan, so I'm very close.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to New York once. So, and I know some. What is he called? Petr Umansky. I don't know if you know him. He's also an illustrator. Petr Umansky.
Pietro?
No, Peter Umansky.
No, I don't know.
He's an illustrator. I also talk to him a lot. So I also feel like when you're in New York, come visit us. I think he also lives in the suburbs somewhere just over the water.
Oh, interesting. Well, I should interview your girlfriend.
You want to interview my girlfriend?
Yeah. So we'll just talk shit about you. That'll be the whole thing.
I don't think she'd want to. She's really
Shy.
She doesn't know. She just she's always like, I only want public attention to what I do, and I don't want to talk about it.
That's fair. I like that. I respect it.
And in a way, I'm the same. But you asked it, so I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's my fault. Anything goes wrong, it's my fault. I'd take that.
No. But no, I have to do a lecture in a couple of weeks, and you're in Belgium, and I'm already thinking, what am I going to talk about? People, what do I have to say?
Just play this and get paid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they pay me. That's the only reason I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, a couple of hours. Okay, yeah, okay. Why not?
Of course. One last thing. How do you pronounce your name?
My last name?
Yeah.
Vanallemeersch.
Pretty straightforward.
So yeah.
Okay.
It's not that obscure a name in Belgium.
Oh, well, it sounds cool here.
Yeah, it's if you translate to English, it's something from all the lakes.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's from the times of Napoleon. Napoleon told everybody in Europe you have to have a second name. So that's why you also have a lot of really, really, really silly surnames in France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. Music by Dori Bavarsky and Mingja Chen. Next up, we have JF Martel. So long.